Check, check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go. Second part of our series on the Humboldt Broncos catastrophe, tragedy, however you want to call it. Just don't call it an accident, in my opinion. Joined by Russ Herold, whose son Adam was the youngest member of the team, captain with the Pat Canadians that got called up for the playoff run for the Humboldt Broncos and passed away at the age of 16. Russ, we just passed the 8-year anniversary. Has it changed for you over the 8 years? Like, how has it changed for you?
I mean, the pain and the loss is still there, so that much hasn't changed. I mean, how has it changed? I guess people move on, so you don't hear from near as many people, and that's understandable. Early on, there was just so many people contacting you and messaging you and wishing you well and that sort of thing. And, and as time goes on, people move on, people forget, that sort of thing. And so that I'd say that's changed. But it's a tough kind of 2-week span or more for us. My daughter's birthday is April 1st, so that should be a happy time, and it is. But I mean, obviously there's the loss of her brother not there when she has her birthday. And then, April 6th is the day we'll never forget. Wish we could. And then April 12th is Adam's birthday.
Yeah.
So, 6 days after the accident is supposed to be his birthday. So it's every year it kind of puts us into or at least myself puts me into a funk for a fair while, because it's you got the crash to deal with, and then maybe you're just starting to get over that, and then his birthday rolls around, and then the day after his birthday was the day of his funeral. So bad memories.
Yeah, and I appreciate you taking time and having strength and courage to do this, man. And we're doing it for a reason. We're going to talk about the accident site because anybody I've talked to, you're the expert on it. So we will talk about it. But I asked Chris Joseph this in the first segment. Don't know if you saw that or not. How do you guys commemorate, or like, do you do something over these 2 weeks, or how do you deal? Like, does it help you cope, I guess?
I mean, we've got all our picture albums out, and if somebody comes over, if they want to, look at some pictures or just tell stories, just talk about them, and just reminisce of days gone by and good memories, that sort of thing. So, and even like this past weekend, we had some friends come over, we had some relatives come over, the day of his birthday, we'll make his favorite meal, that sort of thing, just to try and, remember him and kind of relive some of the good memories.
What was that favorite meal, Russ?
I knew you'd ask me that. It's called porcupine meatballs, but it's not made of porcupine. It's just hamburger and rice in a meatball, and he just loved that. It had sauce on it and he ate it with rice, and that was one of his favorite meals that his mom made him.
I'm glad you can smile and laugh about that. That warms my heart. But is there a memory that you go back? Because listen, some of this is going to be painful, I know, and thanks for bearing with me. Okay, I can't imagine what it's like for a dad to lose his only son. Is there a memory or something that you think about that put a smile on your face when maybe you're going through a tough time as it relates to Adam?
I guess for myself, just the memory of how good we got along, and I mean, as he was getting older, he's becoming a young man, and just kind of the bond we had, we just connected so well, and he was like my friend.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, kids are young when they're coming up and they're playing hockey. Our boys played against each other. And I asked my son, who's a pretty good judge of character, what do you think of Adam Herold? He goes, well, I didn't know him well, Dad, but he was a great player on the ice. And he was he had good character on the ice. So I always judge my kid. My kid's a pretty good judge of character. So my kid thought highly of you. So this really, it hits home for me. And I was just calling the Pat C's Western Regionals, and Herold Farms on the banner underneath Adam's number, high above C6, and you were there working that tournament. What went through your mind as you're working the tournament and watching the tournament?
Um, well, kind of a tough thing to watch. My wife didn't make it, and she was tied up with church with Easter, and she finds it tough to watch, and I find it tough to watch. It brings back a lot of memories, I mean, there's no kids that Adam played with on that team, but it's still his team. We kind of
Yeah,
consider it his team, and you're glad to see him win, but same time, it brings back a lot of memories of he wore that C. He would have been out there for that, that starting lineup in the O Canada and all that kind of thing. That was his spot. So yeah, there's a lot of memories. It's tough to watch. There's no
yeah,
doubt about it. And I'll just show you one thing here, Ballsy.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, so I don't know if you can see that, how
yeah.
well
I
you can
can.
see that.
Yeah,
So this is I think a perfect symbol of Adam in a way, because you see the smashed phone. That's the phone's all broken at the top.
yeah, yeah.
This is his phone that came through the crash. So
Oh wow.
this phone was on the bus. We got it like days later, and and so that I want to go back to the picture.
Yeah.
Um,
Take your time. Take your time, man. We got all day. You
yeah,
know the password. You gotta get in there.
but like that's his dream there. So the phone is shattered, just like it shattered his dream. That picture was him as a 15-year-old, his first game in PA, coming out with the fog or the smoke
Yeah,
or whatever, and
yeah,
announcing, Adam Herold from Momart, Saskatchewan, his first game in the WHL. So that's a pretty good symbol. His smashed phone, like his smashed dream.
yeah. And that's got to be tough, right? Like I talked to Chris about Jackson, what might have been, and you probably think a lot about that too. I'm assuming, right? What might
Oh,
have been,
sure you
even.
do. Sure you
Yeah,
do.
yeah. That's tough. You're not a jersey guy, but you wore a jersey to the championship game. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I wore one of Adam's game jerseys. So we've got a number of jerseys. I mean, we got a lot of jerseys actually, and he played on a lot of teams, so we got a lot of jerseys. But going through the jerseys, you're going like, which I should wear a jersey to honor Adam, kind of thing, and support the Patsies. And I'm looking, and some of them are knockoffs. They're not the originals. And then I'm looking through the jerseys and going, well, that's his original jersey. It's the first year that he played with the Patsies. So it wasn't his captain's jersey, but it's his jersey. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to wear it. I don't wear jerseys to games, but I'll wear one today.
Yeah, hey, that's great, man, and great on you for going out and helping in a volunteer role for that tournament, watching the Patsies win. That takes a lot of courage and strength on your behalf. How tough is this? Like I asked Chris this, and I've done a lot of like radiothons and things, and when raising money through my old days at the radio station for the children's hospital in Saskatoon, and you hear stories about when people go through things or they lose a child. You can go one of two ways. You can galvanize as a family, or you can break apart as a family. How tough a ride has this been for your family? Because Chris mentioned, hey, we thought about breaking up at one time. It was a tough go. How about for your family?
No, it's definitely was tough for our family. I'm sure it was tough for all the families involved, not just ours. But I don't think we ever thought of breaking up. But I mean, I'm sure there's times when you think it was kind of my idea that he went to Humboldt. He was going to PA, and it was his dad who thought it was the better thing for him as hockey wise to get some experience there and get seasoned up for his next season in PA, and let management in PA know he's fully ready. And so can at times can you question that? Can you say if I wouldn't have said that, maybe he wouldn't have went, that sort of thing. But
Yeah,
we're not quitters, our family. Like my daughter was in university at the time and writing exams, and she got a little bit of I don't think they delayed the exam a little bit, but I mean, she wrote all her exams. She finished her university, got her degree, and like for us, the accident happened April 6th, and a month later we're seeding. And when the accident happened, we still had snow on the ground here and that sort of thing. So it wasn't like we were just ready to go and you didn't do anything for a month and then you went seeding. You still had to get the equipment ready. And I mean, the equipment nowadays, there's lots of computers. And I think of it and I think, I don't even know how I did it. Like
Yeah.
I was in you're in a fog, really. Like I don't know how I managed to get through seating. I mean, thank heavens we had lots of friends. I mean, you almost had to make a schedule to ride with me in the tractor, and people that don't farm, friends from the city, so on, and they came out and just kind of supported you and rode along with you, and it kind of took away from being, alone with your thoughts for 12, 14, 16 hours at a time in the tractor. So that was probably a lifesaver. And then we did have some neighbors that did give us some help at seating times, which we greatly appreciated. So, but I mean, yeah, we're not quitters. We
Yeah.
carried on, kind of thing, and
Yeah, certainly.
carried on in his memory, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And he wasn't a quitter, so you're doing it kind of as a legacy thing. And you've got the Adam Herold Legacy Foundation. Talk about that, because you guys you've taken a very painful thing that will always be painful and tried to turn it into a silver lining. Talk about that for us.
Yeah, we're just trying to do what we can do. I mean, I'll just touch on it briefly. I mean, it's when the accident happened, some of Adam's coaches approached us and said, he was a kid of a lot of promise, just like all these kids and these people on the bus. And there was too much, he had too much to offer to just forget about him. So we started the foundation, and the goal of the foundation is to offer hockey skills and development to rural kids that don't have maybe the ability to get to a power skating session or better training or that sort of thing, because of the location, because of finances, what have you. And then combined with that, we offer leadership and team development. So team building. So, and the leadership's become a big part of it. And that's sort of where kind of Adam really shone, was he was a leader, and we're trying to just instill a little bit of good in these kids. You can't change the world in a 3-day camp, but we ask them to volunteer in their community, and and just show them you don't have to be a star, you don't have to be the most popular kid in your class, that sort of thing, to make a difference in your community. And that's all we really hope is, give them some high level hockey skill tips, and just kind of set the seed for young leaders of our province, kind of thing.
So, Russ, I didn't talk about this. I kind of skipped over the question. You went to the Pat Canadians weekend. You helped out. You wore the jersey, and you did all that. But how often have you been around the game of hockey since then? Like, did you get turned off of the game of hockey after this happened with that?
Yeah. I haven't gone a lot. I mean, I've gone and watched the Pat C's a few times, and I've watched some senior hockey games, and we've gone to the odd NHL game, but I can't honestly say we've gone to a lot of games. I don't coach anymore. I don't play anymore. So yeah, it's less. It's definitely less, and it's definitely hard to watch kids that or teammates that Adam played with or played against. Even to go watch a senior hockey game and see a number of kids that he would have played with or against. It's why isn't he out there, kind of thing. So yeah. I haven't watched a bunch of games, I'll say that.
Yeah. Okay. So I know I discussed this. I'm not going to go through it. I know where I was. I was on the radio on that day and got a pit in my stomach thinking about the Swift Current Broncos. I asked Chris where he was. He was at home. Where were you, Russ, when you how did you find out about this?
I was at home. We don't miss too many games. My wife and I were pretty loyal fans, and we traveled to the games, that sort of thing. But we weren't going to that game. I had just gone up the weekend before, and was with Adam and Nipawin the weekend before, and we weren't going to go to that particular game. I was going to an auction sale, believe it or not, as a farmer the next day, and to drive to Nipawin from our farm and drive home the same night to go to the next day, it was just too much. So I talked to him on that Thursday night, and I said, we're not going to come to the game. We're going to just watch it on TV, good luck, that sort of thing. And so had the barbecue running. We were waiting for my daughter to come home from university, and we were going to barbecue and watch the game. And I got a phone call from a friend of mine that worked in the elevator right there at the intersection. Now, he wasn't at work that day, but he obviously got a call from work, and I had just stayed at his house in Nipawin the weekend before, and he phoned me and asked me if I had talked to Adam today, and I said no, and he said you better phone him. There's been an accident with the bus, and I said, how bad an accident? I said it's bad, and I tried phoning him, couldn't get a hold of him. And then I phoned him back, and he said, "Yeah, you better come up here." And that was really the only call that we got notifying us that there was an accident. And I mean, we didn't get a call from RCMP or a team or anything like that. But so, anyways, we phoned our daughter to hurry up and get home. And once she got home, we jumped in the truck and started driving. And then the phone started ringing. People phoning and asking, "How's Adam?" And we're like, we don't know. And every time somebody'd phone, you'd drive a little faster, and you'd drive a little faster. And then you're hearing reports on the radio. I think at that time, Rod Peterson might've been on the radio, and I'm hearing reports of a bus crash or whoever it was. And
it was actually me and Rod. It was actually Rod and I. Yeah.
Okay. And then I got, so then I did get a hold of Chris Beaudry. And then I think it took a few times. I got a hold of Chris, and he said, "Yeah, I'm here at the crash scene. I'll call you back." And then he called back, and then he had a hard time saying it, but he said there is fatalities, but he didn't know who. So then, of course, we're driving faster and faster and faster, and like that. I was driving
Russ, I'm going to stop you for a second, okay? I'm just trying to paint, I'm trying to paint a picture here for the viewers and the listeners, just and not to make you sad or anything, but I think it's important to know. So what's that like in the cab of that truck? The three of you are driving basically recklessly, and who could blame you, because you're trying to get to, you're so helpless. What's it like? Are you hyperventilating, or what's going on in that truck?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty quiet, and I'm pretty nervous, and I know my daughter was pretty worried because I was driving so fast, and saying, you got to slow down, and we're on the 35 highway north of Fort Capel, trying to get to Tisdale, and there's a lot of rough spots in that highway, and a lot of rough railway crossings, and so on, and yeah, I'm doing like 140K with a ton truck, trying to get up there as quick as I can. And it was scary. I mean, we as we got a hold of I got a hold of somebody on the emergency line that they had set up, and they had said, "Go to Nipawin. He's in Nipawin Hospital." Okay, well then you think, oh, he's alive, and then they go, "Oh, just hold the line 1 minute," and then she comes back and says, "Go to Tisdale," but she won't tell you. She says, "Just go to Tisdale Hospital." She won't tell you if he's alive or he's dead or what. And so we're just driving as fast as we can to Tisdale, and I don't even want to say how fast I drove down Main Street in Tisdale to the hospital, and flew up in front of the hospital, and never even took the truck out of gear, ran into the hospital, and when I came to the door to the left, I could see some other players in hospital beds, and then I got grabbed, and they took us to a room in the back to sit with some other parents. The only parents I remember was Schatz's. I don't think I remember anybody else there, to be honest. It's just a blur. And then I don't know how many hours we waited. I'm guessing it was probably 2 hours or more, maybe even till an RCMP came and gave us the news.
So what do you do after you get that life-changing, horrible news?
Well, I mean, yeah, we're obviously have a big cry, and then they tell you, yeah, go to the Canalta in Tisdale. They have rooms for you. I mean, like we could sleep, but we went to the Canalta, and there was more and more police coming in that were staying in the hotel. So I went up to one of them and said, I need to know where's my son? We need some detail. And they took my name and said, okay, somebody will get a hold of you. And about, I don't know, I went back up to my room, and I don't know, maybe an hour or two later, I think it was 4 o'clock in the morning, a knock on the door, and they said, come down to the lobby. And it was, so I met the chief coroner and Ryan Case from the Indian Head RCMP detachment was there. And they sat me down at the table and said, and I guess now I remember asking them how many people died in this crash, like how many people were injured. And I think at the time they told me there was 14 dead. And I was just flabbergasted because I had no idea still at that point how big this crash was. Like, was it just the people in the front of the bus? Was it just a couple of people that were injured or killed? I had no idea. And so you were blown away by that. And then they said, I asked them, I said, well, how do you know for sure it's Adam? And then they said he was positively identified because his ID was in his pocket.
And tell me about that story, because you and I talked before. There's a little fatherly advice with regards to the wallet. Tell me about that story.
Yeah, like the weekend before we were in Nipawin, and I was staying at my friends, and I had texted Adam on the Saturday, and I said, do you want to go out for a coffee or a bite to eat? And he said, sure. So I picked him up from their hotel, and we went to Tim Hortons, and I was he always could eat. There was no problem ever eating, but he seemed so hungry. And I said, and this was like 2 p.m. And I said, didn't you eat dinner? And he says, well, I didn't. I only had a few bucks in my pocket. He said, I didn't bring my wallet. And they took us, we went to Tim Hortons for dinner. And I was like, you got to have your wallet with. Why wouldn't you ask somebody for some money, like borrow some money from somebody? So I told him, you got to carry your wallet with. So yeah, like a good kid that he was, he took his dad's advice and had his wallet in his pocket.
Do you still have his wallet too?
Yeah, I got his wallet. Yeah. This is his watch that he was wearing.
Oh, so Chris told me he kind of falsely was hoping that it was his son that was alive, and then later found out at the funeral home that it wasn't, and he feels bad that he didn't recognize his son. But let's be honest, he was looking through hopeful eyes. Can you take me to when you guys saw Adam for the first time after this?
Well, yeah. So I guess to follow up from the hotel, once they told me he was identified, I went up to the room and I told my wife, let's go. Like, why are we staying here? Like, there's no need for us to stay here now, So, and I mean, you don't know how to deal with any of this. We never dealt with a death like that. Like, you don't know where you should go, what you should be doing. So my sister-in-law was there. She drove and we started the journey home. And at first we stopped in Regina. My mom was in a senior's home in Regina. So we got there, I think about 7:30, and gave my mom the news before she heard it on the news, on the TV or anything. And then we got home, and after maybe being home 45 minutes, we got a phone call saying, come to Saskatoon to identify. So it's Saskatoon's 3.5 hours from us. So get back in the vehicle and rip up to Saskatoon. And then, and we were nervous to see him because you're not sure in an accident of this scale what you're going to see.
Did you ask anybody before? Should I see him?
I'd phoned our local funeral home, and I had asked him for some advice, and he made some calls, and he said, yeah, no, you definitely you want to go. And I think back on it, I think, well, there's no way we wouldn't have went now when you think of it, but at the time you don't know how to react. And so anyways, he was, I don't know how to say this, not sound stupid, but for being deceased, he looked pretty good.
He looked peaceful.
He looked peaceful. He looked I remember his mom saying, he looks like he's just sleeping.
So you're fortunate there, at least.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just wanted to paint the picture of, because a lot of times, like you said, we forget. Like, you're wearing the shirt, we remember. I still have the hockey stick on the front door, like outside. I've never taken that down. And that'll always, it's a part of Saskatchewan history, a somber part. But sometimes I think we get numb to it and we forget about it. And a lot of people would know that the man responsible for this is still in Canada. How does that make you feel?
Oh, it disappoints me. It angers me. I got a lot of emotions for it. I mean, he's been ordered to leave what is it, 3-4 times already, and continues to keep fighting. And I really don't know what the situation is, because I know what the situation is, but he came to this country because he wanted a better life, because of the country that we have. But yet he doesn't respect the fact that he's committed a crime, which should be or is ordered to be deported, but he doesn't want to respect that law. So he wanted to come to this country because of what we offer in this country: freedom and the law abiding and peace and all that sort of thing. And now when he breaks that and is shattering that, he still wants to stay. So he's not respecting that, and he can go home. He's not going to jail to go home. He's going to at the victim impact statements, or at the pre-trial, actually, his lawyer made no bones about saying he came from a well-to-do family in India. His family was, by Indian terms, he did say that. They were farmers, like he tried to compare them to us, actually, to the Herolds, like he said. And so what's the problem?
Okay, wait a minute, because I'm pissed off when I hear that. So he tries to compare his family to the Herolds. How are you taking that when you're hearing that?
Well, yeah. Well, that's just an attempt by a smart lawyer to try and garner sympathy. But yeah, I mean, so he's got a support staff there. He's got family there. They've got income. They don't live on the streets. Just go home. Go home with your family. Mm-hmm. Go home and your country is so large, you'll be anonymous in your country. No one will keep asking you how you're doing. There's like the media asks us every year at this time what's happening. They do the same to him. He'll go on with his life. He won't, and he's got a family already started. He'll have his family there and move on with your life. And for that matter, if he says the conditions aren't good, the air conditions for his son, he can go anywhere in the world. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have to go to India. Go to another country then. But you've broken the trust and to stay here in this country. The reason you wanted to come here, and you broke it. So now you've got to move on. That's the price you're going to have to pay.
You're one of the victims in this, one of the victims that didn't pass away. You lost your only son. Why is it important for you, for your family, that he leaves the country? Like, why is it the most important for you?
Well, just a little bit of closure, and I mean, that part of it at least will be maybe removed. And like I say, we'll quit getting interviews asking us about the driver and about why he should leave, and we'll quit seeing interviews about his life and so on, and we can maybe move on to some degree with our own lives.
Mm-hmm. So you were interviewed for a piece, I guess. I never watched the piece. The same piece where the driver was interviewed, and most of your stuff, as I'm told, didn't make it. It made the cutting room floor. That's kind of one of the reasons I'm talking to you in the second part of this series, and you'll join us for the third part of the series, the law part, with yourself, Chris, and Kevin Meller, the lawyer. But just talk about the biasness you feel is against the victims, and kind of paint a rosy picture of him.
Well, I think I was probably an easy target for her to try and pretend like she was trying to have some balance in her story, because I did, there was a petition out saying, sign the petition to have him deported. And I posted that on my social media. And so she saw that. She follows me. So she knew which way, like what my opinion was. So she basically ran a story portraying him, in soft music and playing with his kids and so on. And then I was the harsh other side of it, but she only of a 30-minute interview that she didn't have the courtesy to come do in person, that she did through a phone, but she could fly to Alberta to do his interview. And she basically 30 minutes, she played a minute 20, I believe it was, or even less. And there was only one statement, and that statement was, he didn't steal my car, he stole my son. When people say just get over it, get over it. It's not like he stole something material wise that I can replace. I can't replace my son. That was the only statement that she played that I made. Anything else that I talked about, never made it.
How do you deal with that? Like, listen, I've talked to you throughout from the get-go, and rightfully so. You're angry, you're hurt, you're bitter. I've noticed a little bit of a change in you, Russ, if you don't mind me saying. Like, I don't want to say you've gotten softer. I don't know if you're dealing with it better. I don't know if you're dealing with the public, like with me, better. You just seem to have a different aura about you. But when you hear that, when you hear somebody, say that, whether it be a keyboard warrior or somebody, you hear somebody say that, hey, you got to just get over it. How does that make you feel?
Oh, it sure, it angers you. I mean, just much like what Chris had said in his interview, trade places. Like anybody there's lots of people have lost someone. So we're not the only person that has lost someone. Mm-hmm. Everybody has lost somebody to some degree. But until you've lost somebody yourself, and I'm not talking somebody far removed, till you've lost somebody close to you, like a son, a daughter, a wife, that sort of thing, and someone that was totally unexpected to, not somebody that was sick or so on, where you kind of knew it was inevitable that was going to happen. You can't put yourself in the same shoes. There's no way to know what those people are feeling, and to say to move on, I can't move on. I miss my son more than anything, and you can't move on from that loss.
Yeah,
moving on would be like forgetting, and I'm not ever going to forget him.
No. Okay, so let's get down to the intersection, because anybody I've talked to said Russ knows a lot about the intersection. He can talk a lot about the intersection. So let's talk about this intersection. It's not the first time. Let's start before the accident, okay? This isn't the first time there's been an accident at that intersection. Tell them, there was a family that was killed in a fiery crash, wasn't there, Russ?
Yeah, in 97, there was 6 people were killed at that intersection. And I do have a bunch of information that I had asked. I'd done freedom of information requests from the government. So, and one of those is I have it here. It's the reconstruction report, or the RCMP report from Constable John Stevenson of the Nipawin Detachment. And if you don't mind, I'll just read it quick, and I'll read parts of some of these other ones. But he has: view obstructions, restrictions in the form of a long row of trees were noted for westbound traffic traveling on 335 highway towards the intersection. As the vehicle approached the intersection with number 35 highway, approximately 400 meters east, visibility to the south was prohibited until the vehicle was 20 meters east of the intersection. So that's the same way that the truck was coming, that the semi was coming on 335. At that point, a northbound vehicle, which would have been the bus on the 35 highway, could be seen. And he says, likewise, a northbound vehicle on Highway 35 approaching the intersection had the same view obstructions as noted above for any westbound traffic on 335 until it cleared the tree line. Like, it was a problem then, and if you freedom information, like, so here is Andy Renaud. So he was the sitting MLA at the time. He's requesting rumble strips be put in because of that intersection, because and even on a lot of these reports, it talks about people driving through that intersection like it doesn't exist. Even with the stop sign there, it's not enough. So then here's the RM of Connaught in 1997 requesting rumble strips, requesting work on that intersection. Here's another one. Here's the coroner request at the time. John Neeson requesting, the coroner recommends that the west approach be made safer by installing an additional warning device, flashing amber lights, and transverse ripples in the asphalt. He's asking for rumble strips. And then, this is another request by the coroner asking for rumble strips, and that's in 2018. Here's here now, as you come forward, like here's the arm in 2018, still asking for rumble strips and warning lights on top of the sign are clearly not enough.
Was that before the accident?
No, this is this one is after the accident.
Okay, yeah.
But
so what's been done there, and we'll continue to talk about this because we got a lot to talk about. What's been done there since the Humboldt bus crash for that intersection?
Well, I just want to just follow up with the rumble strips here. So in 97, this is from the provincial government, and this is their answer to rumble strips, to installing rumble strips. Installation of a warning device at locations that would not show an improvement in traffic operations would result in a false sense of security for the motorist. So that was their reply to installing rumble strips in at that time, that it's going to give. And then it has, based on this one here, it says, based on the above, it appears flashing lights and rumble strips are not warranted at this location. You know, like I guess they had to wait till this many people got killed to do something.
Yeah. Okay. So when you see that, let me pause you there. When you see that, what comes to your mind? What are you thinking when you read that? Before this 2018 accident, what are you thinking now that you look back in hindsight? What, from the government's point of view?
Oh, they should have in all those years. You mean nobody would think to improve that intersection? You know, but I mean, even after it happens. So here, this is from 2018. This is from David Merritt, the sitting MLA, or the minister in charge. So he says, I really believe if you obey the traffic signs and stop at the stop sign, your sight lines are good for all to see in all directions, said Merritt. That's the kind of answer that you get. So even after that happens, and then here's another one. This is another one from the ministry, and it says, ministry engineers have conducted a field review of the intersection, and the review confirmed that the tree line does not obstruct lines for westbound vehicles that have come to a full stop at the intersection. So they still think there's still no problem there. There's even after the accident.
That is unbelievable.
But yet in this is one of their own design manuals. This is a government design manual. So this is DM 2980, and it says, rumble strips can be an effective means of alerting the motorist to a critical decision that lies ahead. The department will install rumble strips on the highway system based on the guidelines provided and can be used where a non-visual warning is required to increase the level of awareness due to an unexpected condition, such as a long tangent section approaching an intersection.
Russ,
you asked what they did. Go ahead.
When you drive over rumble strips, Russ, what does it tell you? What do you think as a driver when you're driving over rumble strips?
Oh, it pisses me right off.
But what does it tell you? To me, it alerts me that something's coming up. I need to slow down.
It alerts me, and I can't believe the number of shitty little highways that I drive on that have rumble strips, and that particular spot with the known danger that was there, and all the people in the area that knew it was dangerous, and the pressure that they had gotten, that they didn't do anything there. But you know what? I did have some discussion with the premier.
Okay.
And I asked the premier, I said, why can't you put rumble strips in there? Well, the asphalt's too thin. That was their reason why they didn't have rumble strips there. The asphalt's too thin. Well, nobody said pave the highway all the way back to Carrot River. Pave it from the intersection 500 meters or what you need. You don't have to go all the way to Carrot River and make it thicker. But that was the reasoning, that the asphalt was too thin.
So then what? Like you just lost. What was it? 16 people. 13 people were seriously injured. Wouldn't you do everything that you could, even if the asphalt was thin? Wouldn't you come up with another type of roadway in that intersection? Like you said, you're not doing it all the way back to Carrot River. Wouldn't you come up with some sort of, so you could avoid this in the future?
Well, you would wish, or would think you would, and then so you would think even in time. So I'm going to show you this. So So this picture here, I don't know how well you can see that.
Put it up a little bit higher. Put it up a little bit higher. Yeah, okay, I can see it. Yeah, I got
Can
it.
you
Yep.
see the red pegs there?
Yep.
So those are survey pegs. So that's the same intersection in the fall of 2018. The government already owned a part of that intersection, but long before the crash.
Move it over a little bit to the outside. Yeah, right there. Okay, yeah, good. Yeah, I see it. I see it. Yeah.
They already own. So there's after it's cut. I'll show you before. That's what it looked like before.
That's the tree line before the accident happened.
Yeah, that's the tree line. So there again, that's the tree line.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what they did in the fall. So these particular trees are well back to the east. So this is long before the intersection, and this had nothing to do with the yard site that was there. These were trees in the field. So they took these trees out, and they mowed the ditch. The ditch had been left in ill repair for a number of years because apparently it was wet. So then they mowed the ditch, and they cut off these trees on a wedge that they had already owned. So, and the official memo of it right here is the brushing at junction 35 and 335 was completed October 15th, 2018. And regards to the brushing, including the small wedge at the northwest corner. And if you've read, this report is the McAnally report. This was done for the government. This is the government's own report on the intersection. And they talk about the wedge. They said the ministry has a small wedge of property measuring 60 meters from the center of the junction to the east along Highway 335 and 100 meters to the south along Highway 35. Obstructions within this wedge form a shelter to the farmyard. And then it talks about the site triangles. They already owned some of that intersection. You think at the very least, if they didn't put rumble strips in, they would have at least mowed what they owed, kept it maintained. But no, there was underbrush in the ditch, 6-8 feet high or more, because it was apparently wet, but you couldn't cut it in the wintertime when it was frozen. So they let that grow up. And then they left those trees right to a 90 at the intersection. Instead of cutting it off on the wedge, like it shows, and those red pegs in that picture, that's the survey markers. They surveyed what they owned. They didn't go in and take property from the owner at that time. That's property they already owned. So, could have they done better beforehand? Yeah, they could have done better.
Okay, you got a lot of papers there, and you got a lot of letters and a lot of reports and all this stuff. And you said you had a brief conversation with Premier Moe. What have you had any, like, through all this, the last 8 years? Have you, Russ Herold, since you've done this deep dive into the intersection, have you sat down with anybody from the government face to face to talk about this?
Well, okay, so I did have a meeting with. Scott Moe arranged a meeting with the Department of Highways because we wanted to talk about intersection safety and what more could be done, because you don't want to think that all these people died in vain, that another accident like this will happen, because you think after you see a lot of this information and you think you got to say something, because if you don't say something and this happens to somebody else, you know, how guilty will you feel knowing I could have done something? I could have said something, So, okay, he arranged a meeting with Department of Highways. So I go to the meeting with Department of Highways, and they have 3 government lawyers there, and they have, I think, some of the guys that did this McAnally report, and they had the Deputy Minister of Highways, Fred Atunes, and they had a couple other people from Department of Highways. And, in the follow-up in the meeting, or the startup of the meeting, one of the fellows says, I was in a similar situation. I was almost in an accident. Somebody came through the intersection on Highway 6 north of Regina, but I took the ditch. So I said, oh, so you could see them coming. And that's when he realized, Yeah, I could see them coming. And
But
I took the ditch. So I didn't get in an accident and get killed or wreck my vehicle or hurt the other people in the other vehicle. So, well, he realized that. So anyways, so they, I started to talk about highway intersections and highway intersection safety. And Fred Atunes told me, don't tell us how to build a highway. He said the 3 E's of building a highway are engineer the highway, educate the public on the laws, and enforce the laws. That was what he wanted me to take back to the parents. That's here you go. Now get out. Don't tell us how to build a highway, and see you later.
What are you thinking when you're told that?
Well, I'm thinking, if it's your kid in that vehicle next time, what are you gonna think that? Are you gonna bring back the 3 E's? Is that gonna console you?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, for sure. Russ, do you have a tough time paying your taxes? I don't mean that here's where I'm going with it. Here's where I'm going with this. Like, you pay your taxes. You're a law-abiding man who works hard, works the fields, pays his taxes, has a legacy foundation. How do you feel? Like, you've been dismissed there. It sounds like you got this deportation thing that's not happening. You must be one frustrated Saskatchewanian and Canadian.
Yeah, for sure. I'm frustrated because I don't see it getting better. I mean, intersection safety. I think after this happened, the provincial government tried to make it look like they were doing good, and they went around and they did do some mowing at some intersections and try to improve a little bit of visibility. But they did it then, and a lot of that stuff starting to grow back. They've left that go, and the truck driving, has it gotten better? No, I don't think it's gotten better. Even with the licensing, until the government actually does the driver train or the truck training or the testing at the very least, not the training, but the testing. I don't think it will get better. As long as you let these shady training centers do the actual testing, which I think some provinces do allow, it's not going to get better.
What do you think when a prime minister or a government official does the whole condolence thing online, and we remember today and all that type of stuff? How does that make you feel? Maybe, at least in some way, you're like, okay, they're remembering my kid and others that passed away, but you have to be like, come on, save that, like, do something else.
Well, it's just talk. It's just talk for their image. If they really wanted to do something, they would enforce a lot of this stuff. A lot of this stuff they knew was happening and still is happening, and they don't do anything about it. So it's just talk.
Legally, what are you doing about it? What are the families doing about it legally? Is there anything you can do legally? Either monetarily or in court. Where are we at with that? And we'll get into more in depth the third part of the series with Kevin Meller, the lawyer. But what are you doing right now?
Well, I mean, right now we're kind of in a holding pattern because this is, I guess, I want to go back a little bit here.
Yeah, go ahead.
If I can. So
yep.
We started our civil suit in July of 2018, and that was against the truck driver and his owner. And the government only got added. I'm not even sure of the exact date. The government was added quite a bit later. It was probably more than a year later. And they were added, frankly, because there was no desire on their part to really do anything about the intersections. And the more you delve into things, and I'll bring up one thing here. So in my Freedom of Information, this is design manual, and I'll take the sticker off here. Yep. This is design manual DM 505. So the DM 505 is sight distances at intersections. And this is the government's own design manual, how to build an intersection. So I got this on Freedom of Information. And it's kind of funny that after I got that, and a month later, it no longer is a document in the government archives. You can't find it if you go to look for it now.
Really?
And it's no longer a design manual for them. And you can't find this document.
Have you asked anybody about that?
Well, I want to read you a couple things out of this
Sure.
that I think are pretty damning. So it says, one of them here, it says sight distances. The sight distance along both roadways at an intersection and across their included corners must be adequate to allow the operators of vehicles approaching simultaneously to see each other in time to prevent a collision at an intersection. The minimum sight triangle must be free of obstructions and is related directly to vehicle speeds due to the resultant distance traversed during perception and reaction time during braking. So then it says, in the case of accident-prone locations, consideration should be given to improving the sight lines. And one of the things it talks about is trees. Such objects include trees, vegetation, buildings, that sort of thing. And then this, I think, it describes the accident to a T. It says, the driver on the through highway, which would be the 35 highway, must be protected by having adequate sight distance to permit him to perceive movements on the minor road, that would be the 335, on the minor road, and to give him sufficient time to be prepared for all eventualities. In the case of a rural highway intersections, adequate sight distance is very essential since due to the high speeds involved, the consequences of this type of accidents can be very severe. Exactly what happened in this accident. They knew what would happen, and they talk about the sight lines that needed to be there, and they didn't have the sight lines. They know they didn't have the sight lines. So if they didn't have the sight lines, then do everything you can. Put the rumble strips in. Cut as many of the trees down as you can without, if you weren't taking any trees out of that farm there, at least cut what you can, do what you can, but they didn't do that. They didn't do that at all.
That is damning.
So in saying that, yeah, we named them, and then in the proceeds of going along, we got stalled because all of a sudden a class action suit, which we're not part of, said that we couldn't go ahead because that would jeopardize their claim. So we've been held up, I think, more than 3 years and a lot of money because of them. And we were held up that we couldn't go ahead, and stalled, and that's maybe a tactic by some groups, who knows. But when it finally came out that our application was struck by the Crown, or not by the Crown, I should say by the judicial system, they didn't do any ruling on the class action. We had to wait for them for over 3 years because we would jeopardize their case, and their case is linked to ours. They used probably more than 80% of our information because our stuff was already all posted with the court. So they piggybacked on top of our claim, but now they haven't been ruled on. Like there's just strange stuff like that. So we're appealing, and we're hoping that, and I'm confident that the appeal court will look at it. I think there's really competent judges on the appeal court, and there'll be more than one judge that looks at it, because I mean, in the ruling, we had a reconstruction firm, one of the top reconstruction firms in Canada, reconstruct that accident. And in part in their findings here, I'll just read you this. It says, had the driver of the MCI bus, that's our bus, perceived the Peterbilt truck at least 1.2 seconds earlier than he did, the collision would have been avoided. Had the trees been cut back to the southeast corner to accommodate the site guidelines, the MCI bus would have stopped and the collision avoided. So that was some of the findings, and it's a big report. It's multiple pages. Well, it's not even mentioned in the findings from the judge. So did he look at it? Did he read it, or did he just glance through it and say, "Oh no, by the letter of the law, no fault insurance, I'm wiping this." Or we're not even going there because no fault covers the government, so we're not going there. I would hope they'd at least look at the information, look at the facts, and because I don't think there's no fault insurance was never intended to let the government be negligent in these cases. They control, the government runs the insurance. They operate the highways. So they can't be negligent in operating the highways and still hold no fault.
Interesting. That's I'll tell you what, man. Adam would be proud of you for what you've been doing here. That you could tell he was your best friend because you are invested. Like you are digging in deep. I never asked you this. Um, were you okay with not going to trial? Like there was the narrative that the truck driver spared you going to spared the families going to trial. Did you want to go to trial? How did you feel at that time, and how do you feel now?
Well, I do remember the Crown prosecutor breaking down in the room and telling the parents that he wasn't going for the maximum sentence, and I thought he should have been going for the maximum sentence. So he gave his explanation, and I mean, we're not lawyers, so you have to trust that they know best. But now, in hindsight, when you look back at it, I don't know. Was that the way it should have went? You can be a conspiracy theorist if you want. He worked for the Crown. I don't know. By doing what he did that let some people off in a way? I don't know. And saying for the truck driver to say he spared us a trial, what more could have we heard? Really?
Yeah.
Like the victim impact statements were gut wrenching. It wasn't like he tortured these kids and killed them with a gun or something. What more were you possibly going to hear in a trial? Were you going to hear what a shitty driver he was and how he falsified his logbook and stuff like that? Was that going to hurt more than what we had already heard in court?
Yeah.
And was that going to hurt more than listening to Chris Beaudry talk about when he had to go to the morgue to identify these kids and they were trying to put kids back together right in front of him, like hearing those kind of stories and hear how it ripped all these families apart? No, yeah. It wasn't like the saving us a trial, that was just a convenient thing to try and get sympathy.
Russ, you are the expert and rightful. Look at that, the information you gave us, and I thank you for that. You're the expert on the accident site. So let me ask you this question: how do you view the bus driver? Was he a hero? I mean, I know your son wasn't saved. I understand that a lot of people didn't make it, but maybe more could have died. What do you think of the bus driver? What he did?
Oh, for sure, he was a hero. When we did the reconstruction, I know the reconstructionist said he kind of struggled with the fact that the sight lines that were there, like how Glenn even got managed to break as much as he did. And I said, it's because Glenn's from Carrot River. Glenn's driven that road hundreds, thousands of times probably. He knows which direction the danger is going to come from. He knows he can glance to the west and see miles and miles. To his right, to the east, he can't see. He knows if there's danger, it's going to be that way. So most likely his foot was hovering over the brake. And the very instant he saw something, he hit the brakes. He skidded, I don't know, was it 24 meters or whatever? Meanwhile, the truck driver never touched the brakes at all. Mm-hmm. And I've driven that highway from Carrot River to the intersection. I've been in Carrot River. I've been at the Pete Moss plant where he loaded. And when you drive back towards that intersection, the way he was driving, you could see that intersection for miles. It's so flat and wide open there. You could see the intersection coming for miles. And did he, I mean, at that time of year, there's a lot of snow. Did he zone out? Did he think, this is the Arctic and I'm my first time here and there can't, he could see two directions. There's nothing. And did he think, I'm just going to take a chance? And maybe for all we know, maybe he couldn't even shift that good. Maybe he couldn't drive the truck that good and didn't want to really gear down, and he was on his phone. He was on his phone with his wife about 15 minutes before the crash for quite a while. So did he have a conversation with her and tell her they were just newly married? They were just married in February and he hadn't seen her for a while. Who knows? Was he in a rush to get home? Only he knows.
A lot of unanswered questions there for sure. Do you drive that intersection? Do you go around there anymore? Do you
as little as possible.
Yeah.
I went north snowmobiling with some friends and we had to go by there and that I didn't snowmobile for the whole day. I just I went back to the intersection and I went and visit some friends that I've got in the area there but I try not to go there. I don't want to go there.
No, and I understand that. I just wondered if you
No.
are in that area, if you go back to say a few prayers or commemorate. But I totally get it. His birthday's coming up. Are you gonna do anything special? Like, what do you do on his birthday? If you don't mind me
Um, Depends. I mean, we built, Adam loved the snowmobile. I mean, he was a real outdoors kid. That's like some of the bond that, and some of the, I don't want to, like I said before, everybody has loss, but I think loss on the farm in a way is maybe a little different because it's one of the few places where you live where you work and you work where you live.
Mm-hmm.
So everything, like, it's not like you can go to work and get away from it. Everywhere I look, there's Adam. You know, he helped you maybe work on that building. He helped you fix that tractor, or he drove that tractor, or, you know, and we hunted and we snowmobiled and we quadded. Well, all the fields we're in, well, that might have been where he got his first deer. You know, that we might have duck hunted in that slough. So there's so many things that you see. So, and then getting to what you were asking, what we're going to do on the day of his birthday. Well, he loved snowmobiling, and there was no snowmobile shacks or warm up cabins in our area. There was no groomed trails at the time, and if we go north, he loved that. He just thought they were the greatest. So we thought, you know what, we're gonna build a warm up shack, and it's open to the community. Anybody can use it, and you know, we got some pictures of Adam snowmobiling in there, and there's a stove in there and stuff. People cook food in there and get warmed up in the wintertime. And if the weather allows, yeah, we might go out there and you know, have a little bite to eat and remember Adam. I went there the other day, and there was a moose ran out and there was a pheasant flying. So I thought that was a pretty nice tribute for Adam, that he'd love that, because he really loved wildlife and the outdoors. He was all about anything outdoors. He loved it.
I love that symbolic picture that you painted, man. It's nice to hear you talk about your son, even though it's in a somber situation. Hey, couple things here. I guess first off, are you I don't know what word to use. Worried, nervous, got some trepidation about how this might go, because the semi driver is trying to stay here for humanitarian reasons. Are you? And it might take a while for this to be done. Just your thoughts on that whole situation. And are you worried that he might win this last card that he's trying to play?
You know what? I honestly think he would have had more success closer to the time of the crash than now. I think people have gotten fed up with they see through him. They see through the lies, and I think people just in general have gotten fed up with the whole bad truckers, bad and immigration, what it's done, that, you know, that sort of thing. You're not against immigration, but all the bad things that have come out of it. So I think people are just a little fed up with it, and I think people want their country back. And so, am I worried? I told that CBC interviewer, I said, "Where's the humanitarian plea for the parents? What about the parents? 16 parents that'll never have a child sit across the table from them again, never ride with them in a vehicle. When you travel, you think they'll never see this. They'll never grow up to see this. They'll never have children. You know, and the kids that are injured, some of them are life altering. Their lives are changed forever, but his life goes on. Yeah, he's got some mental anguish and PTSD or whatever, probably. But life goes on. He's got children. He's got a wife. If he moved away, he wouldn't even hear about her anymore."
You're so you Adam or Russ Herold does this in Pakistan or India or wherever. What do you think happens to him?
Well, I can only imagine what might happen to you over there. I don't think their justice system is quite so giving like ours.
Yeah.
You wouldn't get this many chances.
Two things left. I'll let you. The last one, I'll let you have the last word. But what do you want the people to remember about your son? Like, as we come up on his birthday, what do you want them to remember about Adam Herold?
You know what, he he's special to us because he's our son, and I mean, everybody's kids are special to them. But what I would remember of Adam, one thing, he was humble. He was always humble, even as good an athlete as he was, and that sort of thing. He was always a good teammate, a good friend. I know his friends miss him dearly. His you hear the teams that he played on, how he made sure that when he was a captain, everybody was included. All the rookies were included. There was no hazing, that sort of thing. Just the good person he was, and how easy he could talk to people. I think he got that from his grandpa, actually. He could talk to anybody. He could sit down and you could be a complete stranger and he'd just pick up a conversation with you, and he'd sit at a table and not be looking at his phone. He could sit with a table of older people and make conversation with them. That's something that not every young person can do nowadays, or wants to do, or whatever. But he'd be at the senior home where my mom was, and he'd play shuffleboard with the old men, and he'd be playing crib with the old men. He didn't care that they were 80 years old. I'll play crib with them. So that's the one thing I'll always remember, that he and sometimes maybe I should be more like him, but he was a really good person. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, you're too hard on yourself. I think you're a good person too. And lastly, this will be our last time together solo. You'll be joining me on the third part with Chris Joseph and the lawyer Kevin Meller. What do you want to say here? Last word goes to you.
I don't know in what regards there, Ballsy. One thing I want to say is, when you're talking about symbols, I was just thinking of something. When I was telling you when we drove to Tisdale the night of the accident, and how fast we were driving with that big truck and everything. And well, this was days later when we were at home and we had to go into Regina, and we're driving on the gravel road, and and for that matter, I have to cross the 35 highway every time I go to Regina. So basically, every time I go to the city, from where our farm is, we have to cross the 35 highway. So it's always you're crossing the highway your son got killed on every time you drive it. But anyways, we're driving along the road, and we were a couple miles from the highway, and we saw an eagle, and we said, "Oh, geez, look at an eagle! Oh, that's something." And we got to the highway, and I turned onto the highway, and I stepped on the gas, and all the stud bolts broke off the back wheel on that truck, and the wheel went flying into the ditch. And that was the same truck we were driving at pretty high speed all the way to Tisdale on. So was that eagle? Was that a sign from Adam? I don't know. Was that he was looking after us, or what? Because if I'd have been going faster, it might not have been so good. I just turned onto the highway when that happened.
Wow, that's powerful, man. That's powerful. Well, I do appreciate your time, man. This has been a great chat for over an hour. This will be unedited as we spoke, because I know how it's gone with mainstream media, and that's not how I roll. And I look forward to hearing from you along with Kevin and Chris in the third installment. I appreciate it, Russ. Thoughts and prayers for you and your family in a tough 2-week stretch here for you.
Thank you, Michael.